Hello, I'm Zoe Francois. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we are making key lime pie. This is my all-time favorite dessert. It's sort of a guilty pleasure. I love all key lime pie, but I love this one the best. It has a graham cracker crust, it has a creamy key lime filling, and then wait for it until the end. There's a special layer on top that makes the whole thing spectacular. So come and join me. Let's bake key lime pie. So the first thing that we have to do is prepare the crust. We are going to go with a classic, simple graham cracker crust. And I am just using store-bought graham crackers. You can absolutely make your own graham crackers. In fact, I have a recipe for them in my Zoebakes cookie book. So make graham crackers if you wish. They're delicious, but you can absolutely use store-bought as well. One sleeve of the store-bought graham crackers is the perfect amount, and I will have the entire recipe listed below so you don't have to memorize this. So one sleeve of graham crackers, I just like to crush them up a little bit so the machine doesn't have to work as hard, into your food processor. Brown sugar. You can use light or dark. Melted butter, unsalted butter, and then a pinch of salt. A nice, healthy pinch, probably 1/4 of a teaspoon. And then we just let it go until it's uniform and coated with the butter, and we'll press together into our pie plate. Once the graham crackers and butter and sugar and salt have all been mixed together and you squeeze it together and it holds its shape, it's ready to be pressed into the pan. If you squeeze it like this and it's still crumbling apart and it feels dry, add another tablespoon of butter. You want this all to stick together because that's what's going to give your pie crust its structure. So next thing we need to do is get it into the pie pan. I have the graham cracker crumbs, butter, salt, and sugar all blended together. They're ready to go. My pie plate, what I did was I just rubbed some butter onto the pie plate, just a really, really thin layer of butter. That's gonna give you just a little extra assurance that your pie is gonna slip out of the plate. And now we just need to press our graham cracker crumbs into the pie plate. You want it to be a nice even layer to give your pie a nice crust, give you something to pick the pie up with. And so what I do is I just sort of pat it into place until it's nice and even, and then I get it nice and tight. Okay, that looks pretty even. So what I did was, especially right down in the corners, I use my fingertips to make sure that I don't have these really thick parts of the crust right at the corner here, right at the seam. And so I just want to get in there, make sure that's nice and even. It's even on the bottom. And then I don't want any really thin parts up here, so I kind of pat them down a little bit with my finger at the top so that it's a really nice, even thickness. And now I squeeze it right to the plate so that it's nice and packed in there. If you leave it loose, when you bake it, it's just gonna be crumbly. So you really wanna pack it on there. I'm not crushing it in, otherwise it'll displace it, but just firmly press it with your fingers. Okay, I'm gonna slip this into the oven. It's gonna bake at 350 degrees for about 15 minutes. So the next thing that we have to do is make the filling. I love this filling because for me, it has the perfect balance. It's creamy from the cream cheese and the sweetened condensed milk. And then it has the tartness from the key lime juice. That's the star, and we want it to shine. We don't want this to be so sweet that you don't get that tartness. Otherwise, why bother? Use key lime juice. It tastes different than regular lime juice, although you could totally do this with regular lime juice, but you won't have that classic key lime flavor. If you can get a hold of fresh key limes, do it. They're tiny little limes. They're a pain in the butt to juice, but man, are they delicious. If you can't, go with the classic. Just get the jar. It's fine. That's available all year round. Key limes have a very specific season, so you can only find them at certain times of the year. The key here is the cream cheese. One, I don't always get specific with brands. For cream cheese, I pretty much only like Philly. It has the best texture. It doesn't have a bunch of fillers. I just love how it tastes. So the key here is to make sure it's super, super soft, because you'll notice I'm just doing this in a bowl with a whisk. I'm not using a stand mixer. And so you need to make sure that your cream cheese is nice and soft. If it's not soft enough to whisk, pop it into a microwave for about 10 seconds and it will soften up. So I'm gonna whisk see, look at that. 10 seconds in the microwave and you can just whisk it with a regular old whisk. Add my sugar to it. That'll loosen up the cream cheese a little bit. And then everything is just gonna get whisked together and that's it. And I'm doing this while my crust is baking. In go my egg yolks. I want the richness of the egg yolk, but I don't want the whites in here because that would make my filling almost like rubbery and tight. And I want this just to have the fat of the yolks and the richness of the yolks, and it'll just make it dynamite. In goes my sweetened condensed milk. This is going to give it creaminess. It's going to give it the sweetness. It just adds a layer of richness to the whole thing that I love. And it's like a classic key lime pie to have the sweetened condensed milk. Okay, whisk that together. And then the last thing that we have to add is our key lime juice. Okay, let me show you a trick to keep your bowl from spinning around. Get a kitchen towel, wet it, coil it up, and then create a little ring under your bowl. And that way you can put your bowl down in there, and then when you're whisking, it's not gonna dance all over the counter. Makes it a lot easier. Okay, in goes the rest of our juice. And the last thing is a pinch of salt, because this shouldn't taste salty, but the salt will perk up all of the other flavors. So you want to make sure that you have some salt in there. Extra little pinch, and that's it. Our filling is made. We just have to wait for the crust to be baked. We can pour this in and bake that, and we're on our way. Our crust is ready to go. It smells incredible. It took about 12 minutes, so 12 to 15 minutes in the oven until you can see that it's turning this sort of golden brown on the edges, and then it's done. And trust me, you will smell it when it's done, and it's incredible. The next thing to do is just put our filling into our crust. And you can see the filling, just having the acid from the lime juice with the cream cheese and the eggs, it's already starting to thicken. But we do want to bake it. We're going to pour it into our crust and bake it for about 25 minutes. That will set the filling and also cook the eggs and make sure that we can slice it once it's cooled. Okay, so we'll just spread this around. You'll notice that the filling doesn't go all the way up to the top of the crust. This is by design because we have another layer to go. So back into the oven with our crust and our creamy filling. We're gonna bake this for about 25 minutes until it's set. It's gonna look like Jell-O when it's set. And then we're gonna finish this off with the final layer. So our filling is baked, and if you very gently jiggle it, you can see it moves as one, almost like set Jell-O. You don't want there to be like rippling liquid in there. So set like Jell-O. If while it's baking, you check the oven and it looks like the crust is starting to get a little darker than you want, tent it with some foil. So just take a piece of foil in the oven, you'll do this, and just put it over the top. Don't enclose it tightly, just drape it over the top, put the tent on, and let it finish baking. That'll prevent your crust from getting too dark, but it'll allow the filling to set up perfectly. And now we just wait. So we're gonna let this cool off while we make our lime curd. And that's the key to the perfect key lime pie. We have the creamy layer on the bottom, and then we're gonna add another layer of key lime so that we've got all of this complex layering of flavors. It's just incredible. We're on our final layer for the key lime pie. We have our crust and we have the creamy layer, and now we're gonna make the lime curd. What I've done is I've mixed together the key lime, sugar, and yolks in a bowl. I have a pot of about an inch of water, and I'm gonna bring that to a boil. You only want an inch of water there because when you put your bowl onto the pot, you don't want the bowl to be swimming around in it like a boat. You want just the steam from the water to cook your curd very, very slowly. That way you get the best flavor in your lemon or lime curd or whatever kind of curd you're making. So just bring this to a simmer, whisk everything really, really well together, and then we're just gonna cook this slowly over that simmering water until it starts to thicken. This can take anywhere, depending on the temperature of your ingredients, can take anywhere from 5 minutes to 10 minutes to start thickening. And I will show you what it will look like. So right now it's very, very liquidy. And then when we are done, it's gonna be nice and thick and almost like the texture of a pudding. I'm using a rubber spatula to cook the curd so that I can constantly be wiping the sides of the bowl with the spatula, and that way it will cook really evenly. This usually goes faster in a metal bowl, but I wanted you to be able to see what's going on in there, so I did it in glass. So when you're cooking this at home, use a stainless steel bowl and it will go a little bit faster. Okay, it's just now starting to thicken up. You can see it's not thick enough to sort of cling to the spatula, but I can see that it's moving differently in the bowl. Let's turn that down a little bit and just keep going until it starts to cling to the spatula. So when I lift the spatula up, it doesn't just drip down like water. Okay, it's starting to thicken. It's just moving. You can see, look at that. It's starting to like glop off of the spatula instead of run in a liquid stream. I'm gonna turn down my heat because it'll continue to cook over the steam. But I wanna just turn down that heat just a little bit. And look, you can see it's just kind of like dripping in glops, and glops is a technical term. It's like, it's not a thin, watery stream anymore. Perfect. Okay, so now I have all of this delicious butter that's gonna go into my bowl. We're gonna melt that into the mixture. And I've turned off the heat. This is just the residual steam left from the water that's under there, even though the heat is turned off. And then I'm going to zest a lime. And I realize that I have inadvertently dressed like a lime. So I feel like you need to dress like your recipe. Maybe it makes it taste better. Okay, the zest of a whole lime. I must have had key lime pie on my mind when I went into my closet this morning. Okay, into the bowl, the whole zest of a lime. I like to do this at the end so that it still has a freshness to it, but that the heat of that curd is going to infuse all the oils and scent of that lime zest. Woo! All of a sudden, this kitchen just has this most incredible, intoxicating smell of lime. We're gonna get all of the flavor of that lime zest infused into our curd, but then we're going to strain it right back out of there. We just want to hit it with that lime zest and then strain it out so that it has just this beautiful, silky satin texture to it. Don't forget, we're gonna bake this again on our pie. So I'm gonna strain this over the pie, put it back in the oven, and that's gonna set the curd even more. I need to cook the curd to this point, otherwise it's way too liquidy. It would take way too long to bake in the oven. And so you need to get it to this thickness before you put it onto your pie. Our curd is done. And now what I need to do is strain it over the pie. It has zest in it, and actually I don't mind the texture of the zest, but I want to strain it because just in case there's some cooked egg or other things in there that will change the consistency. So I'm just going to strain it just to make sure it's perfectly smooth, pouring it over the top. But you can see that I'm catching some like egg white that cooked in there and all of that zest. Remember we had that like 1/2 inch of crust that was above the filling, the first filling? Well, we only want to go to the top of the crust. We don't want to go beyond it. And so if you have a little bit of curd left in the bowl, that's fine. You'll put it over toast. Back into the oven only for 5 minutes. That's all it's going to take because we've essentially already cooked it. We just need it to set up a little bit more and marry itself to the filling below. Our pie is completely baked with the crust and the creamy layer and then the curd on top. And now we just need to wait for it to cool. I'm gonna let it sit right here for about a 1/2 hour, and then I'm gonna put it into the refrigerator for 2 hours. It needs to be really, really chilled. You can even let it go overnight and serve it the next day. So we'll come back once this is chilled and I'll show you how to finish it up. My pie is chilled. My whipped cream is whipped, and now it's just time to decorate the top. What I'm gonna do first is just put a pile of whipped cream right in the center. And you could actually decorate the entire thing by just piling on the whipped cream, spreading it around, and call it a day, because it's whipped cream, it's gonna be delicious, and it's beautiful all on its own. But I want to do just a little bit of a flourish on the top of my pie. So I'm putting the whipped cream into a pastry bag. It's fitted with a star tip, and I'm just gonna pipe a little design on top of this blob. And I'm just gonna do little florets. So I'm just piping basically the whipped cream into circles all the way around. And they can overlap each other. I feel like it just gives the pie some dimension, and it's just a fun texture on the top of your pie. And so that's it. We have our key lime pie. We have our graham cracker crust, that really creamy, beautiful key lime filling, and then topped with a key lime curd. So there's layers and layers of the key lime flavor. You have the tartness, you have the creaminess, it's sweet, a little bit sour. It's my favorite key lime pie. Cutting into a pie. The first thing that you want is a pitcher of hot water. Having your knife dipped in the hot water will mean that it'll slide right through the cream and the filling, and you'll get nice, neat slices. So you need to make sure that your knife is nice and hot. And then after every slice, we dip it back in the water and rinse it off. Make sure you're cutting all the way through the crust. Okay, admittedly, the first piece of pie is always a little bit tricky to get out of there, but we're gonna go for it. To get it up in there, and then get it out. Ooh, ooh. Look, it's gonna happen. Ooh. You can't see the pretty layers because the cream is hiding them, but it worked. Yay! It's beautifully set up. My cream is very freshly put on there. So, okay, look at that. You can see the layer of the creamy key lime pie, and then you have your key lime curd, and then you have your mountain of very, very lightly sweetened whipped cream. Oop, that's sliding. Mmm. Mmm. It's so good. It's so good. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my channel. Please tell your friends. Please leave me comments and let me know what else you'd like to bake. And enjoy this key lime. It's sublime. Mmm.